colder and colder and colder, and then it's like a totally white room, like super bright. And hey guys, I literally just came from surgery. I mean, it was about 30 minutes away, so it's been a bit. But yeah, look at this. I still have like the stuff that they put on you prior to surgery. They were like, don't clean it off, you're fine. I'm a bit orange. So it was my first time getting surgery, and I just wanted to make this video for anybody who is also gonna get surgery for the first time. This was a small surgery, so like if you're getting a really serious procedure, I do still have general information I can share with you, but obviously each experience is going to be a bit different. Off the bat, my experience with it, as of now, like we're still in the midst of COVID, so I had to get my COVID test and everything beforehand, and you have to show up early to your surgery appointment to do like the pre-op stuff, right? Like going over paperwork and all the questioning and taking the vitals and all that stuff. So it was relatively quickly for me because I only had local anesthesia. I did have a choice, right? But like I didn't want to go under. I feel like unless I really have to, I would choose to stay awake. And I'll get to that. Like I'll get to my reasoning later on in the video. But yeah, so they're going to go over like HIPAA with you, like all the release forms. They're going to go over, like, if you have jewelry, you also have to sign a release form for that, if they even allow you to keep it in. They let me keep all my jewelry because it's my hand. So if you're wondering about that, it's really just because if they have to use certain materials in the surgery, they don't want to burn you, right? So like, because it's certain things are going to like attract to metal. It's pretty much all it is. And I have 11 piercings. So like they were like, it was a consideration for them, and it was just my finger. And but yeah, I signed the release form and that was fine. Everything was fine. Look at my hair. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So they you know, they're gonna ask you your name a million times, your name and birthday. Every single person you talk to is gonna be like, hello, could you verify your name and your birthday? And then, oh my gosh, I knew that there was gonna be like a little pop quiz about if I know who I am and what we're doing. But yeah, it's like name, birthday, what are we doing today? Who's your doctor? I was like, who's my doctor? Because I had no idea. But yeah, I passed the test. And yeah, so then they called me back. The nurses called me back. And that's when, you know, I'm grown. So like, you know, they're like, what's your height? They're not going to take my height. They just trust that I know it. They took my weight. They asked when the last time I ate was, because depending on your surgery, it does matter. For me, I could eat and drink because I'm not going under anesthesia. And then they ask you a million and one questions. They want to know if you have any allergies or like any like negative effects to medication. And yeah, you just go over like the basic medical history. They just want to make sure you know like what you're here for. And they even go a step further now. I don't know if all doctors do this, but you have to initial the location that they're going to work on. And yeah, this is like to prevent that whole like, I'm going in for something and they do it on the wrong side of your body. Yeah. Or they just do something totally different, right? So not only that, I initial, and then whenever the doctor comes to see you, they initial. And they kind of go over everything. They ask you if you have any questions. And then that's when they give the nurses like the A-OK of like, all right, take her back. And this is my favorite part. Like, so like the nursing staff, yo, they are like just like this band of superheroes. They're hella dope. They do all like the pre-op stuff, obviously. Like they're setting up the room. They're getting everything good. They have amazing bedside manner. Obviously this can depend, but like I've never had any issues. Yeah, so they answer all your questions. They're like pretty friendly. They kind of joke around, like, you know, like they're there literally all day. And the jokes were like, oh yeah, we're just here to like keep the doctor in check, you know, like it was like a running joke. They are really big on the tech side. They're making sure that like everything that's going on in the room, every like monitor and piece of equipment and the whole layout, like they're making sure everything's good, everything's perfect, everything's gonna go smoothly. They're controlling like the flow of the room, and they did an amazing job. Yeah, I was sitting in a wheelchair. They make me feel all nice. They're like, oh, you want more blankets? We have warm blankets. You know, like they put like the like scrubs over me. They put it on my head, my shoes, and They're like, you want to watch TV while you wait? Like, they were super nice. And then they wheeled me away, and they're warning me. They're like, okay, so as we go, it's going to get significantly colder and significantly brighter. And they were not joking. Like, you can like feel it's like colder and colder and colder. And then it's like a totally white room, like super bright. And they turned me over to like wheel me backwards. And then I got nervous. I was like, oh, this is kind of serious, huh? Like, I don't know what it is, but like, it's just, I guess for me, I wasn't really realizing like I'm going into surgery. It was more like, oh yeah, like I have like a surgical procedure, ha 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 ha. But yeah, they even will ask you, they're like, you know, like, do you have like a do not resuscitate or like anything? Do you have a will? Like anybody we can call? Like they have to ask those questions just in case, right? Because for any like medical procedure, especially like surgery, you just never know. But this was very, very low risk for me. Very bright room. There's a team everywhere, right? I thought it was just going to be like the 3 nurses that I was with. But no, then like 4 other nurses come and they're all just like, hello. And they all like have their own part. And I had to again say like, this is my name. This is my birthday. This is what I'm here for. And they're like, okay. Yeah. So, and they explain everything as I'm going. I laid down. I put my hand stretched out, you know. And they're explaining that they're going to have to put like a tourniquet on me. So like if I feel like a lot of pressure, you know, it's supposed to control like the blood flow so that there's not so much bleeding in the midst of surgery. They put this clear thing over my head so that, and I didn't know what they meant. They were like, oh, we're putting this so that like when we bring out the sheet, it's not going to cover you. And I'm like, yeah, totally. Right. Like I had no idea what they were talking about. So imagine I'm laying down like on a kind of table you usually see at a doctor's office, but then they have an extension so that my arm can be totally extended out. Hi, Kiwi. So my arm's extended out, and then they bring out this sheet. It's like a curtain, and then they put it over me, and I'm literally under a sheet. And I'm like, you know, immediate heart rate acceleration, like suddenly I can't breathe, right? I'm wearing a mask as well, like, you know, all the COVID stuff. And I'm just like, you know, like I didn't know I was going to be like under the covers. And then the nurse to my right, amazing woman. She's the one that's like monitoring my oxygen levels and like my heart rate. And she was like, don't worry, I'm not going to keep you under there. And she rolled it up like on one side and she clipped it. So I can't see the surgery at all, but I can see her. I can see her and I can see like her monitor. So everything else going on in the room, I just cannot see. Like it's like totally covered everywhere except here. And I don't know why. And I don't know why. I did nursing. Like I was a CNA. And I did that in a nursing home. I did that in a hospital. I used to volunteer at the hospital. I like been in that sphere. And I don't know why. When I imagined my surgery, I was like, I'm going to be sitting upright. My hand's going to be out and I can be watching. I literally just thought that. I thought I was just going to be like staring like, dang. Like even part of me was like, oh man, like, I wonder what it's going to look like. And then, you know, like I'm making this whole story in my head and they got me under the sheet. Like I didn't see anything. Anywho, so pretty much thus far in the story, it's like the nurses are like, they're your backbone. They're there for you. They're your support system. If you have any questions, if you feel intimidated at all, they're there for you, right? There's so many of them too. So maybe if you gravitate towards a certain one and they're all working together, you are their priority, and it's awesome and it shows. And I felt that, and that made me feel like very confident in what was going on. You barely see the doctor. Like, let's be honest, like you just don't, right? And like, I understand that's usually how it goes, right? Like I saw him once before I went in, and that was just so he could sign my finger and make sure that the nurses know that he's not adding anything. Because sometimes our doctors do that. Like they'll see you the day of and be like, actually, we're not going to do the tourniquet. We're going to do it like this, and we're going to do it, you know? So they have to just verify that they have everything prepared for what he's going to do. And then I saw him. Actually, I didn't even see him because the curtain was already there. But I know he came in and he was like, okay, hello, like, you know, all right, relax your hands, stretch your fingers out. And then he kind of, anything that involves me directly, like he's just speaking out loud. So like sometimes I'm like, is he talking to the nurses? And then the nurses are like, he's talking to you. So yeah, he'd be like, oh, like, we're about to do this and this and da da da. So that was nice, like just kind of knowing, but I didn't really know what was going on. So bear with me. So this is why. He's like, all right, I'm going to numb it. So just prepare, like take a nice deep breath. And then he only said that, like take a nice deep breath. So he's like, on 3, take a deep breath. 1, 2, and I'm like, and then I feel this like fiery, like it hurts so bad, right? And it's like, you know, the worst part, if you've had any shots like in your gums or like in certain parts of your body, like steroid shots and stuff, you feel it pushing through, like forcing its way into your body, and it hurts. So I feel that, and I'm like holding my breath, and I'm like, because it's still going. So I took like 6 breaths. I'm like, dang, this is taking forever. But the nurse next to me, she was awesome. You know, she's like, keep breathing, because I guess I forgot at some point. And she could see my oxygen level, so I'm probably like I had no idea. And yeah, so that was fun. I was like, okay, we got through it, right? And then he's like, no, I'm gonna turn your hand over and do the other side. And I'm like, you know, like, because it hasn't even gotten numb yet. So I did it again. But honestly, it gets numb so fast. And I think I had poor expectations of how numb I was going to get, because I've had cavities before, and they would put the shot like in my gums, which hurts so bad. Like just as bad as you're imagining. It's worse. Like, oh my gosh, it's horrible. And they would do that, and I would still feel it. And they'd be like, honestly, it's just your nerves. You're just going to have to deal with it. Horrible experience. So I thought it was going to go like that. I'm like, damn, I'm about to feel the blade. Like, I don't want to like, you know, jerk. And then I slice my whole hand open. I'm starting to get nervous, and you can see it on the monitor. My heart rate's like beep, 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 beep. Because I like the tip of my finger, I can still like, I felt like I could feel it. And then it was just getting really quiet. Like immediately, just like very quiet. Not much time had passed. So I asked the nurse, I'm like, what are they doing? And they're like, oh, they already made the incision. He's, you know, I'm like, he's just like in my body. Like, oh, I didn't know. I'm like, dang, yo, like that numbing stuff, do not fret. That numbing stuff is legit. They know what they're doing. Yeah, because it didn't feel a thing. Like it was insane. And the nurse was telling me that like the incision was like very tiny, like she couldn't even see like inside from where she was sitting. So that's cool. And obviously it's wrapped up, so I haven't seen how large the incision actually is. We'll go over that whenever I take the dressing off. But yeah, so like the numbing, it was great. From there on, like I was kind of wondering like how my hand would react, if there was going to be like, you know, like just like jerks that were outside of my control, or if like my nerves would be triggered in any way. But no, again, they had the tourniquet on, and I think I only really felt that. Like you can feel the fact that like there's just no blood in your arm. And they're kind of like holding my fingers, like maneuvering, because like obviously like your fingers get in the way. And I think I cannot conform. Hello? I cannot confirm nor deny, but I think randomly like my fingers would like jump, but they're holding them, because like, you know, when you feel, it's hard to explain, but basically it was pretty hands off. I didn't really have to do much. There was no worries there. I was just, and you could talk, right? Like I was talking to the nurse. I was like, yo, you watch Law Abiding Citizen? You know when he has a guy on the table and there's a mirror over? And I'm trying to whisper because like I know how it sounds. And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, this is what I would imagine it feeling like. And she's like, I'm weird. I don't know. Because, you know, I can't feel my arm, and I'm like staring up at nothingness. And I'm like, dang, like, wouldn't that be crazy? Like, could you imagine your whole body? And then we were talking about sleep paralysis. And I'm like, what if the reason why people usually see a person is because it usually happens when no other stimuli is around, like in a dark room in the middle of the night when no other person's there? Like, what if your brain is like looking for that, so they form it themselves, you know? Like, I don't know. I mean, I've never thought about this ever in my life, but like when I was in surgery, suddenly that's what I thought. Anywho, surgery was pretty quick. Obviously, it would depend on your surgery, like what exactly they're doing and if you are getting local anesthesia or not. But yeah, it was really quick. The doctor took out the mass that I had, right? Like I went in for a mass removal on my finger. I thought it was going to be a cyst. It ended up being a tumor, and they're not exactly sure. They do have an idea of what kind of tumor it is, but we still have to wait for the biopsy and all that good stuff. For the kind of tumor they did think it was, he was like, yeah, like if it is what I believe it to be, and you know, he's been doing his thing for a bit. He's like, these usually tend to recur. And I'm like, oh, great. And I'm like, what can cause it? Is it like the trauma? And he's like, it's pretty much just like bad luck. And I'm like, oh, awesome. Like nobody wants to hear that, right? Like, yeah, so like the problem you came in today is probably going to happen again. And also it's just because you're unlucky. All right, have a good day. That's pretty much how that went. But no, he was nice. Like he was trying to see if I had any more questions. And you know what? I just had to say it. I was like, you know what, doc, can I hold a controller or what? Just let me know. Because I'm getting stitches, right? And he was like, yeah, well, everybody laughed. And then he was like, yes, you should be able to hold a controller. And then someone from far away was like, are you a gamer? And I'm like, yep. Yo, so like I've been playing Rocket League, but right now I'm into shooters right now. So like I'm back on Val and da-da-da-da. And then they're like, oh yeah, I'm a gamer too. And then one's like, no, honestly, it's just my kids who game. And like, you know, they're all like older. So one of them was like, honestly, like the doc only really plays what, like asteroids. And then he's like, I played Donkey Kong too. And I'm like, oh no. So we're all just like laughing. We're talking about games and stuff. It was nice. I would say in general, I've found even just outside of surgery, like the doctors are usually like the most intimidating, right? Because they're usually like more serious and like very like crunched for time. And like you only have so much exposure with them, like, you know, whereas like the nurses, you can kind of like get a feel for them. So it is important to make sure like you have good like rapport like with your nursing staff. And but yeah, my doctor, he wasn't like a bad guy at all. Like it was all good. And oh yeah, my shirt. So like I went in with a long sleeve because I'm like, oh yeah, hospitals and stuff are usually cold, but I would recommend not wearing a long sleeve because like they had to roll it all the way up and it gets tight. It's just like unnecessary. You're like in the way of what they need to be doing. What else? I'll do recommendations and stuff at the end. But yeah, so after that, then everything's very slow. Like they're fast, but they want you to be slow. So like they're taking everything down and blah, 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 blah. And they're laughing because like it looks crazy. It's like behind the scenes, like everything's all elegant. And then the behind the scenes are like ripping stuff down and there's trash everywhere. And they're like, yeah, usually the patient's asleep. So, and they have like stuff tangled or trying to tear out of the lights. And I'm like, I'm just laughing. They had me like lay there. Like I was the last person to move. Like once everybody was pretty much out, except for like the first 3 nurses that I met, they were like, okay, well, we want you to just sit up slowly. They want me to just kind of sit there. And they took off, I had a seatbelt kind of thing on, right? Just so that I don't like fall off the table or anything, or if anything happened. They undid that, and then they wanted me to just dangle my legs. Because they were kind of like, as your blood flows to your feet, if you were going to get really lightheaded, it would be happening now. So it's better that you're doing the dangle test rather than just like standing and seeing what happens. So we did the dangle test, and then they put me back in the wheelchair, which is just like, I'm assuming it's just like surgery protocol to like put people in wheelchairs so that you can walk them where they need to be going. Then they wheeled me off, right? They wheeled me off. Oh, sorry. They showed me the mass because I asked. I don't think they would have showed me if I didn't. So if you are trying to see like if they remove something from your body, you should ask. Yeah, I asked the nurse to ask them. I was like, hey, did they remove it? Because they're not telling you like what's going on with the surgery, like what stage they're in and like all that stuff. So if you just like kind of stayed quiet, I guess depending, but like my take from it is that they would just do everything without you, which makes sense. But no, that's why I would ask the nurse. I'd be like, what are they doing? Did they take it out yet? Can I see it? Can you ask them if I can see it? And they showed me, and it looks like if you ate a peach, this is what it looked like. You ate a peach and like a little piece of like that yellowish stuff like popped out of your mouth. That's what it looked like. It was like a little ball of like this yellowish nastiness. And I was like, so what are you gonna do with it, right? I'm just so curious. I'm like, you're gonna see if something grows on top of it or what? And they're like, oh, we're just sending it off to the lab to like make sure it is what we think it is. So I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And I will get those results when I do my follow-up appointment to take out my stitches. But yeah, anywho, so they wheeled me off, and then they bring me to like another nurse it's not like the surgical staffing nurse. I don't know what kind of nurse she was, honestly, but she was a nurse. And they're all cool, you know. She's like, oh, hey, what's up? She was acting like if this was like an airport and they're doing the landing. And because she's like, right this way. It was, you had to be there. Okay. Anyway, so that's when they're taking your vitals again. They're asking you all these questions. And the nursing staff, they were really cool. So they were kind of just like giving me a little insight. And I was asking them random questions. They're like, yeah. So like we pretty much, just as we're talking to you, we are looking for signs of stuff the entire time. Like we're testing the way you're speaking, like if anything changes, like the way you're moving, the way you're responding to certain things, just like different things they're looking for the entire time because they want to make sure you're good. I was like, hey, I follow like a lot of like med school pages, and there's this guy, if you know, the guy with like the shorter curly hair that does like med school little memes. And I was like, is it true that like you'll ask people if they have allergies and you really try to make sure you're like, so no allergies, no bad reactions, your body's never reacted badly? They're like, nope, nothing at all, nothing whatsoever. And then the doctor comes and like, so no allergies? And they're like, oh no, I have a whole list of allergies. I'm allergic to penicillin and da-da-da. Yeah. So, and they were like, all the time, that happens all the time. So that's why they get so creative when they ask. They're like, oh, like, you ever had like an upset stomach or just like any negative reaction, any medications that you just prefer not to take because of something that happened in your body? And they're like, yeah. So some people just, if you ask about allergies, they think seasonal and they don't really think about like reactions to medication. But yeah, they were laughing. They're like, oh, I know exactly who you're talking about. And yes, it is all true. They fed me, they gave me snacks, they gave me juice. I did have to ask. Again, they offered me juice, and then I was like, I heard that there are snacks. And they're like, oh yeah, if you want snacks, we have snacks for you guys. So yeah, ask for snacks. You can stay there as long as you want. Like until you are comfortable leaving, until you feel good, you can stay. At least like that's what they told me. And I asked them, because this is the time, like if you feel anything, if you have any questions, like anything on your mind, like this is the time. It's okay. Like they're there for you. That's what you have to remember, right? You're not a burden. Don't think it's weird. Don't think it's unnecessary or they're gonna judge you. Like just ask your questions, right? And I just straight up was like, is it normal to feel like I feel like numbing sensation like everywhere? Like suddenly I felt like my entire body was coming off of like something numb. It's like my head felt weird and like my whole body felt weird. They were just like, honestly, that's pretty like, they weren't saying it's common, but they're like, it would make sense like with how much numbing was put like into your arm. It could have just like spread through your body. It sounds like it's okay. I'm like, okay. Right, because I had a 30-minute drive home, and I'm like, I just want to make sure everything's good. Yeah, pretty much after that, I was discharged. I got in my car, and it was good. Wow, me trying to do a thumbs up. Hello? Took a second. My hand's still pretty numb. Yeah, they did give me a prescription for pain medication, but like I don't think I'm gonna pick it up. I'm not a huge fan of like really strong pain medication. I don't even know what's waiting for me at the pharmacy, but it's definitely something you need a prescription for. I think it'll be okay. So the reason why I believe, like, for me personally, I would rather be awake than put to sleep, if that's an option, is because I compare it to why, even though there's so much more risk to driving a car and being on the road in a vehicle versus being on a plane, and even still with those facts, more people tend to be scared of like flying on a plane than they are in riding in a car. It's like the factor of the unknown, right? Like the thought of being put to sleep, it reminds me of like being on a plane, that whole like completely out of my control, like hope for the best, like I hope I wake up, right? Like I hope this plane lands. Whereas like when you're driving a car, you're kind of, you have an idea of what's going on, right? And being awake, it was a really cool experience too. Like just being able to really interact with the staff and kind of like hearing how they interact with each other. And just like knowing how my body's responding and just like feeling things. Like I really enjoyed the fact that I could be present through all of that. Obviously, this is like my first and only surgery that I've had. I don't know how this would translate to like a lot of other surgeries, but this is how I felt about it. So if you feel similarly, let me know. If you feel total opposite, let me know. I would love to hear like what the other side is of that. And because obviously like I know with certain surgeries, you shouldn't do that. Like, right. Like you might jerk, you might get scared. Like if you have anxiety, things like that. It could make a difference. Honestly, like here are my recommendations for if you're getting surgery. My recommendations are, just don't be scared to ask questions. Like way before surgery, the day of surgery, right before surgery, after surgery. Just ask your questions. There are no stupid questions. It's okay. Like they're there to help you, and a lot of the times they would much rather you just like volunteer information and questions and concerns than them have to guess or something, you know, like hopefully this never happens, but if something happened later on and it could have been avoided by you just like being very transparent about the things on your mind or the things that you were feeling. I also recommend wearing short sleeves and like loose fitted clothing. They might just like take your clothing away and like give you like the scrubs, but you know, in case they don't. I also recommend honestly bringing like a little bag for your stuff, because I had my stuff everywhere and I just kind of had to leave it on the wheelchair and everything. And it would have been nice to just have like a little bag to keep it all in. I also recommend arriving like early, if like on time, if not early, because I was late. And don't be like me. I was late because I'm not gonna lie, I woke up late and I immediately was like and I had to like run out the door, and I did not like that. And I got really lucky that my pre-op stuff was like very, very quick and there was a cancellation. Like I got very lucky. Unlucky about this, but like lucky about being able to remove it. Other recommendations are, if you get cold a lot, because I was lucky, the staff honestly was very, very proactive. They were asking me like what I need, what I want, offering me options, but it won't always be that way. If you're cold, ask for the blankets. They have the blankets. They have stuff for you. They have stuff for your comfort. If you need water, let them know. If you need to know where the bathroom is, ask. That's another thing with the bathroom. Go beforehand, because you just can't go during surgery, right? Like, I mean, like you will just have to like go on yourself. I'm sure. I don't know. My surgery was short, so like we didn't have to get into that conversation. But yeah, like it, even like my surgery being short, if I suddenly had to use the bathroom really bad, I can't just get up, right? Like this is common sense. Like, so just go before. Even if you're like, I don't have to go, just go before. I mean, why not? Make sure you know what's going on before you leave. That's another thing. So like make sure you know if you have to schedule an appointment, because just because they say come back in 10 days doesn't mean that the appointment's scheduled. Like make sure you schedule it. Make sure you have all your stuff, and they should ask you, right? That's like one of the things that they do on discharge. They ask like, do you have your phone, wallet, keys? Make sure you ask like just like anything about like recovery, any questions that you have. Like I had to ask about swimming. I'm like, you said I can get it wet in 3 days. What does that mean? They mean showers, light, wet. Do not submerge it at all, right? That was something that I needed to be clarified for me. And yeah, honestly, like surgery can really be daunting. This was, again, my first surgery, and I just wanted to make this in case anybody is feeling a little nervous about it. Yeah, mine went really well. Obviously, there are risks to any surgeries, any procedures, but just give yourself peace of mind in asking the questions, kind of being involved in that process, and educating yourself with like the actual source, right? Because Google can probably stress you out a bit more, but ask the doctor, ask the nursing staff, ask the nurses to ask the doctor. It's okay. And just like follow doctor's orders. If you really are scared, like bring your support system, have people there for you, have your emergency contacts. If you're like, I don't have those people, then, I mean, again, just like be your own support system in the way of like leaning on the people who are there for you, leaning on the nursing staff, and like asking those questions and just like getting the answers that you need so that you can provide the best care to yourself after the fact, before and after surgery. And yeah, so that was my first surgery experience. I have a dressing on my finger, in case you're wondering which one had the dressing. And I can remove it in 3 days, and in 10 days I'll come back to get my stitches removed. We will see how this goes. Look at this. Isn't that crazy? My bop. Bro, look at that bite mark. Anywho, yeah, I'll keep you guys posted on what it looks like when I take it off. But yeah, thank you. Okay, this is also important. I almost forgot to mention this. The nursing staff was really good about not allowing me to get anxious. And I know that they're people, so like obviously people vary, but you know, their job is to like keep everything good. Like everything is flowing well. So like for instance, my anxiety would be like trying to get in my head, right? So that was a weird thing to say because obviously anxiety is in your head. Anyhow, basically anytime I would try to phrase something in a way that showed a negative outcome, if I'm like, dang, did something go wrong? Or like, you know, like, oh, it's taking a while. Or like, what if the numbing thing just like wore off? Ha 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 ha. The nursing staff would be like, oh no, like, oh no, 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 no. No matter how I phrased it, she just like would not allow me to run with like negative thoughts, which was really nice, right? Like that is the best way I can phrase it. And it was to the point that it happened a few times and I said it out loud. I was like, wow, you're really good at like not encouraging any negative thoughts that pop in my head. And she laughed and she was like, yeah, you know, like I don't want you to get the wrong idea, so I'm not just gonna agree with something that you're saying. And I was like, yeah, I like it, because you know sometimes you're like, aha, something's terrible, and they're like, yeah, I mean, it could be. No, she'd be like, no, 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 this is exactly what's going on and everything's going really well, you're good. And I'm like, oh. Oh, it's nice to know. Yeah, like, so that was really nice. I really, really appreciated that. Honestly, the nursing staff really carried the surgery all the way through as far as like bedside manners and like keeping things comfortable for me. Like I was thoroughly impressed. Shout out to the nurses. Also, so driving with one hand completely numb was very weird. So like you can still move your hand. Don't think that you can't. Like right after surgery, I could move, but it feels weird. Like I can tell that I can't actually feel it. Like if somebody stabbed me in my hand, I'd probably be like, oh. I was holding the steering wheel and it was just like, it feels weird, especially if you use the tip of your finger because you're like, wow, I don't, like I feel the pressure, but I don't feel anything. Just keep that in mind. I have a manual, so like I was really glad that I didn't do it on my right hand because that would have been really weird. Like, yeah. But okay. Update. It's been about 5 hours since my surgery and I got my first little like little tinge of pain and I was like, hold up. Is this about to hurt? When the numbing wears off, still numb. I can kind of feel like a lot more than before, but yeah. There's like bruising. Oh, snap. Stay tuned.